good afternoon. You're watching Breaking Ground. I'm Kritsween Walia. Let's quickly start up with Prime Minister Narendra Modi's itinerary in Bali. Remember, he's in Bali in Indonesia for the G20 Summit. And on the sidelines of the summit, the Prime Minister also interestingly met UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and US President Joe Biden. If I could quickly open this up, we have Maruf Raza with us. But before that, a quick word that I'll take in from Srinjoy. Srinjoy, in the address at the G20 Summit, the Prime Minister could be heard saying that climate change, COVID-19, the developments in Ukraine and the global problems associated with it have caused a lot of havoc in the world, and also ruled that the global supply chains are in ruin. So that has been the emphasis coming in from Prime Minister Narendra Modi. What's lined up for him through the later half of the day?
Well, it's very important that the Prime Minister spoke about these things because the world has changed from 2020. Yes, the war has made a difference. Yes, COVID has made a difference. Climate change, of course, is going to make a difference. Prime Minister has said hello to Biden. He has said hello to Rishi Sunak. What is lined up for tomorrow are the bilaterals. He is going to meet at least 8 to 9 world leaders tomorrow. Among them, what we are hearing, we have heard the US National Security Advisor say that yes, President Biden wants to meet Prime Minister Modi. He is looking forward to meeting Prime Minister Modi. So it's entirely to be expected that there will be a bilateral tomorrow between President Biden and Prime Minister Modi. There is also a likelihood of a meeting between the two Prime Ministers. Prime Minister Sunak and Prime Minister Modi have not met. They have not had a bilateral. So both sides are working towards a bilateral with each other. That's the second. There is an increasingly possible that he will meet President Macron tomorrow. That's what we are hearing, because President Macron and Prime Minister Modi are friends. They are also co-chairmen of the International Solar Alliance. So these three meetings are very, very likely. Beyond that, we know there will be at least 4 or 5 other meetings. We will have to see how they will work out. We know that he will definitely meet President Widodo. That's really the 4th big meeting. Okay. So there are others in place, but the most important thing is that they will be in the same room at the same time, and that includes with Xi Jinping. Whether there will be a bilateral with Xi Jinping, we do not know.
Okay.
They are going to be at the same room. They have been, and they will be tomorrow. But we don't know whether there will be a bilateral or not. There has been nothing from the Indian government on it. But it's likely that there will be bilaterals with Biden, with Rishi Sunak, with Macron. All three are very, very likely.
Okay. So a lot of bilaterals lined up for tomorrow. Maruf Raza, if I could bring you in here, what do you make of this particular summit? Also, given that India is all set to assume the G20 presidency starting 1st of December, what do you think is on India's agenda, and how crucial are the bilaterals lined up for tomorrow?
This is a very important time in world history, and it's a lucky moment for India that India will get the rotatory presidency of the G20 from 1st December. And India has done a lot of homework preparing for that presidency. There are, I believe, more than 200 meetings and conferences and engagements lined up, countries to be involved in India. And this is going to give not just officials of the government in India, but also civil society, youth groups, scientific groups, business groups, all different levels of engagement with the G20 countries. Please remember that the G20 is actually made up of 19 countries and European Union. So therefore, it's more than 20 countries, and these countries between them not only are a very important population block of the world, more than 50% of the population comes in the G20 countries, but they control about 80% of the world's wealth. And therefore, to be constantly engaging with the powerful and the rich is not just a requirement for India, but also other G20 members who are looking to India to provide leadership, because India seems to be acceptable to both the Western world and to the developing world. And so India is really going to be the bridge between the Western world and developing world at a time when there are 3 or 4 major issues to be addressed. One is about how the world economy needs to be fortified against a possible collapse and recession, because the G20 really came into its own when there was a global recession in 2008. Secondly, what role can India play as a counter to China's dominance in the supply chain of the world, and how the supply chain and manufacturing chain can use India and its demographic dividend to become a very important aspect of the world's next level of economic growth. The third is there are a lot of countries that are suffering very large losses because of both energy losses and money going towards energy security and food security, both an outcome of the tensions between Russia and Europe following the conflict in Ukraine. So there is an element there that India again can be seen to be providing that bridge to try and facilitate the ambitions of the not so well-off countries, which is really called the global south. And the global north is all the rich lot in the Western world, the G7 really. And last and most important is Mr. Modi's personal initiatives, which he has been working on, such as, the solar energy engagements where France would come in as India's partner, the debt rescheduling of many countries in India's neighborhood which are collapsing or about to collapse economically, Pakistan, Sri Lanka being cases in point. And finally, the fact that India can become the go-to country, and I would urge this idea to take root, that why not give India the chance to have a permanent secretariat for the G20 in India, like you have a Commonwealth Secretariat in UK. And if India pushes for that, it will become a big shot in the arm for Indian diplomacy. Back to you.
Okay, you very nicely put it out for viewers. The point highlighted by Maruf with regards to India's leadership role. And that also gets highlighted in what the Prime Minister says. He says for us in India, the G20 in 2023 will not only be about diplomatic meetings. The summit presents us with the opportunity to showcase our developmental strides aimed at furthering global good.
Yes, undoubtedly. You look at what people have said. There are heads of state and government who are saying that Prime Minister Modi should take a leading role in speaking with the Russians and the Ukrainians and ensuring that the war comes to an end. 10, 20, 30 years ago, no one ever said that the Indian Prime Minister should come and end a very fratricidal war. Never has any foreign leader ever, till today, recently, said that, well, Prime Minister Modi, the Prime Minister of India, actually should intervene with the Russians and the Ukrainians. That is a sign of India's standing in world affairs today. That is actually a sign that India is coming of age. Besides that, Modi has spoken up for the third world. He has spoken about the problems with fuel crisis because of the war, the problems with food, again because of the war. He has spoken up on behalf of the global south. And thirdly, the big problem that the world is going to face, if it's already not facing, is basically climate change. No one talks about it so much, but it has to be said that India hasn't talked about it. India has done something. What
Absolutely.
India is head of
this
the world.
particular summit is also being viewed ahead of India assuming presidency, like we were discussing, Maruf. And in that sense, India has to certainly chalk out an agenda that has the unanimity of all the members. Internal governance reform is certainly the need of the hour. How India pushes it forward is something that we're eyeing at very, very closely. Thank you, Maruf and Srinjoy, for joining us with all those details. We quickly shift our focus to more